Hey there, and welcome to this little guide on prospecting and Lord of the Rings Online. Now, with the new Veil of the Nine legendary servers, the population in LOTRO has gone up, with many new players trying the game out for the very first time. But something I have seen many new players struggle with is prospecting for metal, and it's usually tier 2 that they first encounter issues, especially if they have taken up jewelry as a profession. Now, I know my thumbnail made it seem like there's some magical place where you can find silver aplenty, but you will not find any super farm area for silver in this guide because it really does not exist in the game. But what you will find are some time-saving tips that can help with any tier of prospecting and some of the other professions as well, and also my favorite place to farm those tier 2 ores. Now, one thing about me and my videos is that I'd like to get straight to the point, so let's get to those tips. For my first tip, I suggest changing up your hotkeys concerning movement. Now, by default, LOTRO starts you off with strafing and turning, with those keys being Q and E and A and D. I completely removed the turning keys because keyboard turning is the slowest method for turning your character around, and it's just a bad way to play. Use your mouse to turn your character around. It's much faster and will help you be a better fighter and better player overall. Now, I swapped my strafing to the A and D keys, and I have my Q and E keys set for something which will help you be a better gatherer or looter. For E, I set this to the Select Next Item option, which you can find in your Options and then Key Mapping menu. And then just type in the search at the top for item, and you're going to see it. Now, with that set to E, every time you press E, the closest item to you in the world is going to highlight. This can be the metal nodes that you're looking for, or it can be other items in the world such as random vegetables, or much needed plants for dyes, or other searchable resources like wood or scholar items, etc. Now, I prefer E as my find button because I can constantly tap it while I'm pressing W to move forward, since those keys are right next to each other. Now, to make gathering even easier, change your Q key to the Use Selection option. Again, search for it in the same menu as before under key mapping. So what this does is you find the object with E, and let's say it's barrow iron. You then press Q, and your character moves directly to that item and harvests it, all without you having to click or anything. This also helps if you and another player are racing toward the same node. This keeps you from misclicking or moving past the item and it not gathering. So this next tip is going to piggyback off of tip number 1 with using E or whatever button you decide to use for tracking items. And if you're set to gather more than one type of resource, so let's say you gather metal and scholar items. Now, you don't have to switch between tracking metal and or scholar items or wood if you're constantly hitting E while you travel, especially when you go near ruins where scholar items are known to be. You know they're normally there, so pressing your find button while you're there will allow you to find those scholar items with that method, and you can still just track metal without having to switch between the two. I found plenty of yarrow roots for scholar dye making while only tracking metal while gathering the footage for this tier 2 metal video. Alright, so with your precious metals for jewelry crafting like silver, gold, etc., those nodes are rare to pop up, so I like to set little goals for myself. So this tip is going to show you my tier 2 path that I take to collect, but the one thing I like to do before starting is either calculate how many I'm going to need for what I'm trying to do, or just come up with a reasonable number to collect. For this run I took footage of today, I decided I wanted to go with 50 silver ore. Once I had a piece of ore, I then selected and dragged the ore into an empty slot of my toolbar so I could easily see how many I had without needing to keep going into my inventory. Then as I made my way around my area, I just kept tracking it until I hit 50, and then I knew I was ready to map back out and go craft those ingots. Alright, so this tip is one I think many people just don't think about, and that is to just farm during off-time hours. Now, for the American servers, that would be early morning before 10 a.m. Eastern on weekends, or during the week before 4 to 5 p.m. Really late at night after midnight to 2 a.m. would also be decent times if you're up that late. But during the weekend or weekday primetime hours, the resources are going to be hit hard with questers. Now, I like to just level up during those times, taking advantage of the extra people to help with wraiths or tougher areas, and then during those slow times, it's a good time to chill and gather the resources that I need. Alright, so a really quick tip that will make gathering easier is just to gather in areas where the mobs are 9 or more levels less than you are. Once you're 9 or more levels above them, they will not attack you and you can move about without worry or having to waste time fighting them. Anything less than 9 and they're going to aggro on you and come right after you. Alright, so this is the tip I think most of you came here for. With the new legendary servers, it took me back to when the game first came out with how busy the areas could be, and with so many vying for the same resources, it can be hard to get what you need. So for any tier, my suggestion is to look for those areas off the beaten path, so to speak. The one thing about LOTRO is the world is huge, and there are many filler areas on the outskirts, or areas that bridge two zones that don't have quests, or very few, or few enough to make players think twice about going that far out for one or two quests. And those are the places that you will not have to fight for resources even during busy times. For tier 2, that place for me has always been east of Hengstacer's farm, seen here highlighted on the map. This area has mostly sub-level 20 mobs except around the orc camp, but you can avoid those. I like to start north going along the river, going around the orc camp, and then heading east still, not hugging the river but kind of keeping a distance so I can pick up ores that are along the river or in the middle in a pretty good radial pattern. Then once you get to this corner where the water pulls into the lake, I check that corner because there's usually 2 or 3 out of 4 spawns there. Then I head south around to these ruins where there's always 1 or 2 close by. Then up the hill and more southwestern into the woods. Now I go south until I see that I'm on the border of the Chetwood Forest, and then I just start going west until I get to where there's some large gray rocks in the center of the field, which is well before the farm. There's sort of a dead zone if you go too close to the farm, so I try to stay in this area and then turn north once I see those large gray rocks. Then I just go north until I hit the river border, and then you rinse and repeat. It's a nice large area with enough time passed to where they respawn by the time you get back around. Now I spent 1.5 hours to 2 hours here, and I got 50 silver and 200 barrow iron total, along with some other things like 9 yarrow root. Now keep in mind, I was answering emails for my job and stepped away a couple of times, so it wasn't a solid 2 hours of just grinding, but more on the casual side. So here's a quick bonus tip for some tier 3 items as well. Now while out at the tier 2 spot from tip number 6, you can go a little further east to the corner of the lake and you will find some tier 3 resources here. Now there's not many, but you can add this to your path if you want to get a jump start on those, assuming you've opened up tier 3. Now there's a little strip on the very east side of the lake, don't even bother going there, there's nothing there. There are some level 20ish turtles here to contend with that can be near the ores, so just be careful. Okay, so that is it for these quick tips on harvesting in LOTRO. Now, I hope you found something here that was worth the watch. And if you did find it useful, if you would do all of those things that help a small content creator who does this in his spare time grow, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, if you have some better tier 2 hotspots you want to share, or have some of the higher tiers, then shoot those down in the comments below. Now, I do already have my favorite spots for the next few tiers, and I'll put out a video if there's interest for it. Anyway, I've been Black, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you out in Middle Earth.